Hello and welcome, Lanita, the scrappy grandma. I really want to try to do this without crying, but I started crying in my Torah portion reading because just it's a lot. So to bring you up to date, my father has passed. Um, he passed on the 5th, a week ago, Thursday. Um, and I just had to take some time to myself. Um, it was it's been a roller coaster. Honestly, I would say I felt like every morning I had to get up and strap myself into the most terrifying roller coaster on the planet. And I don't like adrenaline. I used to when I was younger. I don't like adrenaline at all now. I don't like roller coasters. Um, so I'm not even sure where I left off. Um, I think it was my dad was coming home from the skilled nursing facility. And he did. He came home. And it was really a challenge because he was just really contentious and really difficult and angry and lashing out and um, obstinate. And it was just really difficult. Um, and he and I got into it a couple of times. And actually, we got into it really bad one day. He actually bit me and hit me. And and I now understand with his seizures, I believe that at those times he was actually having seizures or had had a seizure and was confused by the seizure. Because I learned a lot about seizure. I learned a lot more than I needed to know about seizures, or maybe just as much as I need to know about seizures, but I learned a lot about seizures. And so um, we had a really difficult week. And then he ended up, um, and he had this pattern. He would be great. And then on a Sunday morning, it happened, it happened the first time he went into the hospital with the seizures. It was on a Sunday. And then this time, once again, on a Sunday, so he came home from the skilled nursing facility. And basically, he came home, learned a lot about insurances too. Basically, his insurance would no longer pay for him to be in the skilled nursing rehabilitation facility because he was not progressing. He was not rehabilitating. He was refusing, and I now know that he just wasn't able. He just wasn't able anymore. He was tired. And as much as his mind wanted him to get better, his body wasn't letting him. Um, but so Sunday, that came a Sunday again. And maybe, yeah, it was for like, yeah, it was yeah, it was a Sunday when it started. And he was just hard. And then I forget what was happening. But he actually came home on hospice, which I learned a lot about hospice. Oh my gosh. So um I finally realized like, oh, that's what it was. So he would like sleep all day long. But then at night at 10 o'clock, and it was like clockwork. It was crazy. Rusty and I would be getting ready for bed, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, it's almost 10 o'clock. Is he going to do it again tonight? Sure enough, 10 o'clock, he was on. He'd sleep all day. And then at 10 o'clock at night, he would constantly be trying to get out of bed. And we actually, with hospice, ended up getting him a hospital bed that had the full rail. So he could no longer get his legs swung down because the other one just had a half rail and he was able to swing his legs down. And there was lots of challenges with that because he couldn't walk. And if he got out of bed, he would fall, get hurt, hit his head, do whatever. Um, so with the full rail, he couldn't get out of bed, but he'd get twisted up because he'd pull his legs up like trying to get out of bed, but couldn't. And he would be really agitated and he'd throw all of his covers off and pull everything off of him. It was just, he was miserable. And I realized finally, like, oh my gosh, he's having seizures again because this is exactly what happened before. And so I called hospice, which is what we're supposed to do. And they were like, well, we have a home, our hospice home. If there's a bed, he's more than welcome to come here, or you can take him to the hospital. He'll get the same treatment. That was not exactly the case. That is not it was all the case, actually. And I probably misunderstood them. They probably said something else, and that's what I heard. He would get the same treatment. So I took him down there, and then when we get there, and he went down by ambulance, and then I followed down, and then Rusty met me down there. No, my gosh. No. Oh my gosh. That's the day that it snowed a lot here. And so Rusty actually had to come home from work because I live at the top of a mountain, and my driveway and the road to my driveway are very steep and high altitude, and there was a lot of snow. And so Rusty actually came home in our four-wheel drive truck, and he drove up and down the road, up and down the road several times to where he got all of the ice and snow gone, and it was just asphalt. And so the ambulance could come. So the ambulance came, and then Rusty and I went downtown in the truck because of the snow. Um, to the Heinz Hospice House. And when we got there, my dad was already in a room, already being tended to. And, we were out there, they were, talking to us and signing papers and doing all the things. And and I'm like, okay, so, you're going to hook him up to an IV so he can get his medication because obviously he needs his seizure medication dose upped because he's having breakthrough seizures again. And they're like, well, no, we don't do IVs here. We don't poke the skin. We don't. And I'm like, okay, how does he get his medication? I'm sorry. There was a conversation and my husband had with my dad and he was joking around with him and he's like, you better take your medicine. You better take your medicine. If you don't, then if you don't take it by mouth, it's going up the other way. Joking around with him. And he'd always tease and my dad would giggle and laugh. And um he and Rusty had a really beautiful relationship. Um, so um, I'm like, so they said, well, we put a catheter in and we put it in the other way and it's absorbed through, the colon. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, just, this doesn't feel right, you know, and the weight is really heavy to make decisions for another human being, and especially one that you really don't know well. Sadly, and you know, very brief conversations when he would be in and be well, that we could have these conversations. So we left him there that night. And I had not slept in like 3 days because literally he would go from 10 o'clock at night till 3 o'clock in the morning of this. No matter what kind of medication cocktails we tried, it was just in him. He would wake up around 10, not really wake up, but he would be doing all this crazy stuff until like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I wasn't getting any sleep. And so I got a good night's sleep. And that night I woke up like, whoa, wait, if he doesn't have an IV, then he's not getting any hydration and no nourishment. And he already hadn't, because he was having the seizures and not able to eat, he had already not had food for a couple of days, not had water for a couple of days, not had his medicine for a couple of days because he wasn't. That's how I knew he was having a seizure because he couldn't swallow. That's how I got bit because trying to give him his medication. So um, I called down there and I'm like, wait, and they're like, no, no, we're just going to let him go. And I'm like, no, seizures are treatable. And no. And so I had the ambulance go pick him up and take him to the hospital. And I went down 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I hate hospitals. Hate them. And so when he got there, it was bad because he hadn't had any nutrition or hydration, and it was really bad. And they started working on him, and his heart was kind of like doing some crazy stuff, dehydration. Um, and Rusty got there, and things kind of settled down a bit. And so we're like, okay, well, it was a Friday night, and so we wanted to go get dinner before sundown because of Shabbat of Sabbath. And so we went out to dinner, and the doctor actually called us and said, you need to get back here right now to be able to say your goodbyes. So we got our food to go. Here we go. And we went back and he had coded twice and they had to shock his heart and his blood pressure was tanking and his heart rate was skyrocketing and everything was just all wonkers. And I know it's because of no hydration, no electrolytes. He was low on potassium, all this stuff. So, and then all of a sudden, it fixed, and his everything happened. His blood pressure came, his heart rate came down, his blood pressure went up, everything balanced out. So they got a room for him, and as if you're advocating, and this is something that really upset me, and but I was so exhausted. I was really having a hard time making decisions because I was so tired from lack of sleep for days and the stress of it all and everything. And so the floor nurse wouldn't allow us to come up with him because it was after visiting hours were over. It was like 10 o'clock at night. And time passes really weird in the hospital. I mean, it's like you'll look up at 4 hours will have passed and it feels like 20 minutes. It's very bizarre. But so I should have fought. I should have advocated because my father was nonverbal at this point. He needed someone to advocate for him. And I needed to go up there and explain, his patterns and habits that they need to deal with and stuff. They wouldn't let us. I didn't fight it. I was tired. I went home. I slept, went back down there the next day. And sure enough, he had done his 10 o'clock thing, pulled out his leads, pulled out his IVs. And that's what he does. He doesn't want anything touching him. So he's pulling everything off. And I get it. I've been in that kind of pain with my body of I don't want anything touching me. So we went in and and they had and he was eating. He had been like on the brink of death, literally brink of death. And he was eating and he was with the speech pathologist and she was doing a swallow because that's one of the areas that his seizures didn't affect him like most seizures you see on TV because that's the only experience I've had with seizures is TV. His seizures would affect his language. He wouldn't be able to, he would like, he would look at you like you should know what he's saying, and he would say, the barn dog fence over the tree. And you wouldn't know what he was saying because his brain just couldn't put the words together and that he couldn't swallow and his hands would shake really bad. That's how I knew he was having a seizure. So, but he was with the speech pathologist who was helping him doing an evaluation on his swallowing to see if he was able to swallow or if he needed IV nutrition because he was having, couldn't swallow. He was able to swallow. He was joking with the nurses, but he was still really contentious with me. And that's the hard thing. And everyone was like, oh, don't take it personal. And my husband will be the first to tell you it was very personal. And I don't know if I reminded him of his mother because he had really gone back to like ranging between a 4-year-old and a 14-year-old, honestly. I don't know if I reminded him of his mother or what, but he couldn't stand me. I mean, he would be sweet and nice to all the nurses and to Rusty. And then to me, he was just mean and ugly. And that was really hard because I wasn't raised with him. And all a little girl, sorry, all a little girl wants is for her daddy to love her. And I have not had that. I have an amazing stepfather who does love me. But I wanted my dad to love me and to show me that he loved me, and he didn't. It was just the opposite. So he was in the hospital for like a week, and then he was coming home. And I remember he was coming home on a Shabbat, on a Saturday, and Rusty actually was gone because he was at a mandatory fire certification. So for him to be able to work the fires, he has to go to a class and get certified every year to work on the fires. And this was mandatory. So he went. And so I was here to prepare the home for him to come home. And so I went through and prayed through the entire house. I blew my shofar through the entire house. But for those of you who don't know, go read about, study about the shofar. But evil cannot be in the presence of the shofar. Um, Prayed through the house, and then he came home and he was calmer. And so he and I had a long conversation. Um, he said he didn't remember, of course, when he's having the seizures, he doesn't remember. And I said, yeah, you actually died and they had to bring you back. And he's like, well, next time just let me go. And I'm like, I will. Now that I hear you say that, I wasn't sure. You know, I felt that if you could just get the treatment for the seizures, you still have plenty of time with us. So he said, well, next time it happens, just let me go. I said, okay, I will do that. I promise. I will let you go. So, um, I think it was, let's see, the nurse came so hard all the days and stuff. So Monday, his nurse came out to see him, and a lot of things happened. He was still being not as ugly, but still contrary with me. And I said something to the nurse, and he's like, don't take it personal. I'm like, trust me, it's personal. For some reason, I mean, not personal to me, but personal to whatever is in him that can't stand me. And maybe that's whatever was in him can't stand what is in me. And so the nurse, before he left, he's like, you're so lucky to have Lanita, and she's really doing a good job, and you need to be nice to her. So this is a little bit personal, but it's part of the story. So because we didn't know, because when he went down to the hospice house, they he had been we didn't know when he had last had his bowel movement with, and he's on opioids. And so for those of you that know opioids, you end up getting constipated. When he went down to the hospice house, he was impacted, and so they had to take care of that so they could put the catheter in for the medications. And so when he came back from the hospital didn't tell me when he had had his last bowel movement. So the nurse that came out the day he got here, she's like, well, just give him two, tonight, just in case. So, well, and it was Senna, and Senna helps with constipation. Those of you that know Senna, and if you take two, you go a lot, and it's liquid a lot. So the nurse leaves, and I'm in, and we're talking to my dad, and all of a sudden, there it is. And he's like, I'm going. And I'm like, okay, okay. And so and then he's like, I'm still, and I'm okay. And then I go and I look, and like, there's just, it's, and I'm like, I'm by myself. I'm alone with him. I'm like, I even called Rusty. What do I do? And he's like, well, I can't help you. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going in. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to figure it out. And I did. And it was a lot, and it was hard, especially with my back and having to, but he was still able at that point to like pull himself, like if I would pull him, he could hold on to the bars and pull himself. He could help with the weight bearing of moving him and stuff, and got him all cleaned up. And he looked at me with this look in his eye that I had never seen before. And he just said, and you could tell it had humbled him. And he said, what you've done is a really good thing. I'm like, I'm not going to let you sit there in it. That's what I'm here for, to help take care of you. That's all I want. Just take care of you. So from that day forward, he was kind and happy and loving. In fact, the day he came home, it was funny. We used to drink wine 30 years ago when I first, 26 years ago when I first met him, him and his wife were in a wine club and they gave us wine and all this stuff. And, but he hasn't drank alcohol in a long time. He doesn't felt well. And he's laying in there and he's like, I want some of that white stuff, some of that white stuff. And I'm like, white stuff. Frosting, pudding, whipped cream. No, no, no. Makes you goofy. That makes you goofy. And then he's like, the things. And then I'm like, grapes? Wine? You want some white wine? He's like, yes, I want some white wine. And I'm thinking, he's on hospice at this point. Honestly, we took him off all of his diabetes medication, all of his high blood pressure. We took him off all the medications except for like his seizure medication and his pain medication. And so, you want wine? I'm getting you wine. And I said, well, I just so happen to have an open bottle on my counter that I've been, hitting every night. I go get you a bottle of wine. Um, and so, or a glass of wine. So I went and got him a glass of wine and he drank it down and he loved it. And the next thing he was like, and so we were concerned because in the hospital with the speech and stuff, they're, he was like, I want steak. And they're like, don't give him steak. Like, okay. He says, everything has to be chopped up really small for him. It's like, okay. And he's like, do you have any meat? Do you have anything with meat in it? I want some meat. And I said, well, I just so happened, this is how the father does things. The night before, I had made Rusty chopped steak. So they were nice little pieces, chopped steak with chopped potatoes, mixed together. Just so happened to have some leftovers for you. Took him, he ate 2 servings. And now this was a man who had been refusing food. No, no, I don't like it. I don't want it. I don't want that. Um, he ate it up. He ate it up. And then he got some pudding and he was just like, oh, this is so good. He was thankful and he was appreciative and he was kind and he was happy and excited and joking and laughing. And that week was beautiful. It was beautiful. And one day, he wanted me to help him put his pants on so he could get up and play golf because he was watching golf on TV. And I'm like, well, Dad, you sold your clubs. You can't play golf. And he just, now I know that it was his rally, which a lot of people, when they're close to death, they have a rally. My mother-in-law had a day where she just felt awesome and the grandkids were there and they were sitting on her lap and she was laughing and joking and having so much fun. And then the next day she went away and she never came back. So I didn't realize that this was the rally um, at the time. I was just enjoying him. And he actually gave me a look that is forever on my mind of a daddy who loved his daughter. So the Most High in His goodness, my Father in heaven, gave me what I needed. A brief glimpse. That's all I needed. So then he had a really great day Saturday. Um, he was wheeling himself around in his wheelchair. He was doing great. Um, that night I had to go and watch the grandkids because my son-in-law was working late. It was a Friday night again, and no, it was Saturday night. It was Shabbat night. Um, my son-in-law had to work on that day and work late, and my daughter-in-law had an appointment she had to go to, and so I went over to watch the kids. Makes me kind of sad now but actually it doesn't because Rusty made him dinner. Um, he wanted Campbell's thick and chunky vegetable beef soup, and Rusty made him, and he ate 2 bowls. And then for dessert, like I said, we didn't care what he ate anymore, just calories are calories at this point. And on hospice. And the whole rigmarole with hospice, I almost wasn't able to get him back on hospice because I intervened with the process and had him. And they're like, either you're gonna want him have him treated for things, or you're gonna let nature take its course. And I'm like, he told me he wants nature to take its course. We're back on track. Let's just, yeah. So, and they are fabulous. Oh my gosh, our hospice was fabulous. They came up, they helped me. They scheduled the nurse and the aide came up 3 days a week to help me with him because he needed a lot and stuff of my back. I'm not able to do much. So anyway, Rusty sat in with him and they watched a thing on Tesla. He loves Elon Musk and Teslas, and that was his dream when he could start walking again, is that he was going to go get his driver's license and he was going to buy a Tesla. That was his dream. And so Rusty brought him in dessert, and he was, brought him in a chocolate chip cookie, a thing of chocolate pudding, and something else chocolatey. Oh, a Snickers fun size bar, the little Snickers. And he ate all three. And then he told Rusty he was a five-star chef and he loved his cooking. And they joked and laughed and they had a really nice night. And that was the last. That was his final rally. And Sunday morning on Kehoe, he wouldn't wake up. And so then it came time of just taking care of his body as it passed. And I learned a lot um, because of lack of sleep, because he was, for the first couple nights, he was still doing the 10 to 3 o'clock thing. Um, I went in once and I was trying to roll him, and instead of pulling, which, you've got the leverage to pull, I was trying to push. My brain just wouldn't kick in to do things correctly, and I really jacked my back up. Um, but it was a lot. But praise the Most High, He gave us a beautiful week that completely redeemed everything else. Everything else. The fact that He abandoned me, before I was even born, didn't try to find me when he when we did meet each other. He didn't do anything to maintain a relationship with me. I just felt very unloved and unwanted. In that one week, I felt my daddy's love, and it healed decades of feeling unloved and unwanted. So, so the nurse came out on Wednesday and basically um changed his condition to imminent, meaning hours to days. He would, only last hours to days at this point. And then Thursday morning, I went in to give him his meds, and I could tell by the way his body was behaving that we were very close to the end. And within a half hour, he was no longer breathing. And he went. And we gave him what he wanted. He wanted to die at home, not in a hospital. He wanted to die with family around him, and he did. So we fulfilled that wish for him. And then that day, it was a day of waiting because we had to wait for the nurses to come and pronounce him dead. We had to wait, and then they prepared him for the mortuary to come, or, the funeral place to come and get him, to take him down. And if ever, and this is a place that here is local, but my friend used it with her father, who she went through the exact same thing a year ago with her father. And we found that we can prepay, it was like $1,500. And that was for them to pick him up, take him down. He was going to be cremated. And then when he's ready, we'll get the ashes and the paperwork. And they are even ordering the death certificates for me and everything. I just have to go pick them up. I'll have to read the papers. Anyway, so we waited for them to come pick him up. The equipment company, hospice took care of all of the phone calls. The equipment company came and took everything. And even we had already, like Monday or so, contacted the family that was waiting, that was going to be taking his kitties. And we had already pre-scheduled for them to come on Thursday. We had no idea that this was all going to happen. But so by the end of Thursday, a lot of traces of him were just gone. His kitties were gone. His equipment was gone. He was gone. And during the time of waiting for the people and everything to come here, Rusty and I went through a lot of his belongings, his clothes and things like that. That he actually, I mean, his suits that that he used to wear in the courtroom, as a lawyer. and things. And we packed them up and we took them down to the Heinz Hospice thrift store. The next day, Rusty took the Friday off, and we took things down there and we kind of just settled things. And I miss him. I miss him. And I was really hoping for a couple of months to a couple of years of him being here, but that's not what the Father had planned. So, um, I want to thank all of you for all of your prayers. And they were felt, they were tangible, and the Father, he did miracles. He did miracles. There were so many beautiful moments. There were really hard moments. There were transformational moments. I mean, the Father used this in answering my heart's cry, my prayer of to make me more like him. Make me a useful vessel for your kingdom. And through these hardship trials and pressings, where parts of us that are ugly are revealed to us, and we're able to get rid of them, or, ask the Father to help us to cut that bondage away from us, the bondage that makes us contrary to who we're supposed to be. And a lot of those ugly moments came up because the pressing was that hard, lack of sleep and physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, emotional exhaustion. You know, it can really bring the uglies out in you. And it did. And I'm thankful because I was able to address the uglies and I was able to repent from the uglies and I was able to renounce the uglies. And I was able, I'm very mindful now and prayerful that this is no longer a part of my character and my nature because I want to have the character and nature of my Messiah, the Most High Yeshua. So thank you for your prayers. He is so faithful to answer our prayers and make us into who we are created to be and strip off all of the stuff that the world we've taken in from the world, and we can strip that, he strips that out of us and we become who we were created to be. And so I want to thank all of you. And I don't know what I'm doing now. I didn't do my Torah portion recording for a couple weeks because of the exhaustion, but I did today, and my prayer is to continue back in that. There's some cool things that the Father's doing. There's some guys that I follow that are doing um, a, a daily walk through the prophets starting in Joshua. So that's exciting, and I can share that link. And I hear my daughter coming up. So my grandson Obi's here. We're getting a horse, so we've got to go prepare our pasture for a horse. And Obi's here to help Grandma and Grandpa work on the fence and stuff. So be blessed, and prayerfully, I'll see you next week with another update. Thanks. Bye.